This past week, Roddy Ricch released a 3-song EP, The Big Three, and there's been talk among the hip-hop community that Roddy Ricch has fallen off from the heights that he once was at. Instead of giving you all my opinion, today we're going to break down evidence to support whether this theory is or isn't true. The first part of this video will be all about numbers and gaining factual evidence about Roddy's career thus far. And in the second half, I'll be going over intangible things to consider before judging your answer around this theory. The main way I went about my research is I've gone through and calculated all of the public numbers on Roddy Ricch for the past 5 years that relate directly to music. More directly, his streaming numbers on Spotify and SoundCloud, along with views on YouTube. Starting from when he dropped his first tape, Feed the Streets, all the way to the Big Three EP released this past week. The main statistic I am basing my research off of is streams per day from when any project was released to date. I calculated the total number of streams from his projects and divided it by the number of days since the project has been released. This way, whether the numbers were older or more recent, we still had an equivalent data point to reference. On the screen, you will see a chart showcasing Roddy's streams per day per project on Spotify. One thing I want to note here is that his first mixtape, Feed the Streets, was once on DSPs but was removed when Roddy signed his deal with Atlantic Records in 2019. On the x-axis, you'll see all of Roddy's projects starting with Feed the Streets 2 on the very left and chronologically moving up to the Big Three on the very right. On the y-axis, you'll see the streams per day since release Roddy has gotten on that particular project. As we can see from Feed the Streets 2 to Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, Roddy was on a linear projection upwards going from 623,000 streams per day all the way up to still averaging 3.2 million streams per day. One alarming thing here as I was calculating these numbers is that 2 songs, The Box and High Fashion, make up about 68% of Roddy's total streams for Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. This will be a key indicator in the video later on, so be sure to watch until the end. At the drop of Live Life Fast is when the narrative started against Roddy that he had fallen off. As we can see based on the data, his streams have in fact fallen approximately 45% on Spotify, and then an even further drop to his current EP, The Big Three. However, I will state here that the more songs a project has, the more streams per day it will average. So this EP shouldn't be referenced too harshly next to a larger project. However, it is the data point we're working with here. Next, let's go onto YouTube and look at Roddy's views per project per day. Just like Spotify, we can see a very similar trend. A linear increase from the beginning of Roddy's career to the drop of Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. Further after, we see a significant 74% drop in Roddy's views on YouTube at the release of Live Life Fast. A huge factor into this number was that Roddy did not drop as many music videos as he did in past projects. For Feed the Streets 2, Roddy released 5 music videos that accumulated a total of approximately 660 million views to date. For Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, he dropped a total of 4 music videos that accumulated a total of 535 million views to date. However, a significant note here is that out of all the music videos dropped, The Box, which has over 400 million views, makes up about 80% of the total views for his music videos on Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. Also, the official audios on that album were significantly higher than any other project to this point, which is why Roddy is sitting at such a high peak here on YouTube according to our data. Since the drop of Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial over 2.5 years ago, Roddy has only dropped 3 music videos, 1 album, and 1 EP. Those music videos are Late at Night, which has approximately 36 million views, followed by 25 Million, which has 12 million views, along with his most recent video, Real Talk, with Mustard, which has 766,000 views at the time of this recording. We can see based on the graph that Roddy has not really gotten the traction on YouTube that he got in the past, and is even sitting today around 30% lower than the Feed the Streets 2 era. The final metric I looked at was SoundCloud. As early in Roddy's career, he got a ton of traction here, and throughout every project, he's always released his music on the platform. Just like the past 2 pieces of data have shown us, Roddy showed a linear projection upwards from Feed the Streets to Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, and has decreased significantly since then, sitting today around where he was at the release of the first Feed the Streets mixtape. After evaluating this data, the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, what should we interpret? The first thing we need to touch upon is that on all platforms, we see the same data trend of a linear projection upward through Roddy's first 3 projects and a decrease all around since then. So where did Roddy go wrong from Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial to Live Life Fast. Here, there's two variables to look at. One is controllable and the other is uncontrollable. The controllable factor is the amount of music Roddy has put out to keep people's attention and keep them coming back to his catalog. He has put out just 21 songs in the past 3 years. This is not a lot according to today's music standards. Someone like NBA YoungBoy, for example, has put out 34 records in 2021 alone. The second and uncontrollable factor is having hit records like The Box or High Fashion. Having hit records is uncontrollable because when an artist releases music, they never know how the public will interpret it. And if you do get a hit record, it can make the whole perspective of any release become positive for the artist's public narrative. Based on past patterns, we have in fact seen the trend of all of Roddy's projects be top-heavy from the hit records he's had. On Feed the Streets 2, he had 3 hit records, Every Season, Die Young, and Down Below. Cumulatively, on Spotify, those make up 707 million of the 833 million streams on the project at the time of this recording, about 85% of the total streams. On Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, The Box and High Fashion made up about 68% of the total streams. This is significant evidence that people were in love with specific records and not necessarily a fan of the project as a whole. On Roddy's latest projects, Live Life Fast and the Big 3 EP, he has not had a hit record that blew up to the magnitude of the past outside of Late at Night, which was released as a single 6 months before Live Life Fast and stayed on the Billboard charts for a total of 20 weeks. If we compared Roddy Ricch's solo record Billboard numbers on Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial to the drop of Live Life Fast, Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial had 7 records that cumulatively stayed on the Billboard Hot 100 for a total of 93 weeks. Since the release of Live Life Fast, he has only had 4 records on the Billboard Hot 100 that only stayed for 1 week apiece and then fell off. Therefore, the controllable factor is he hasn't put out enough music compared to other artists to continue having people's attentions. And second, he hasn't put out any impactful records since this narrative started. In the past, the hit records were how he was able to create such a big buzz, and without them, this is leading to the data trends that we are seeing now. Even the 3 records from the Big 3 did not chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Outside of the statistics, there are certainly some intangibles to discuss in this case of Roddy Ricch. With today's music run by streaming, we all have access to listen to music in an unlimited amount throughout the day if we so choose. With having such a large selection to pick from, when we find an artist that we really like, we have a tendency to dig through the catalog of that artist. One problem I've noticed with Roddy Ricch is that his catalog is not very big at all, and in fact, very small compared to his peers. So when people find a song or an album that they really like and they want to continue to explore him as an artist, there really isn't much to interact with. In total, Roddy only has 3 projects and 1 EP on DSPs. If we look at other artists in the same lane in this generation of rap who are considered great, Lil Baby has 9 albums released, Lil Durk has 21 albums released, NBA YoungBoy has 24 albums released, Kodak Black has 12 albums released, and the list goes on. I believe this has played a role in people's interests falling off of Roddy. They want more of him, but he's not there to deliver it. In an interview with Homegrown Radio, Roddy said that if he's not in the right place to make good music, he doesn't do it. He's quality over quantity. But with the game going towards such constant demand for new music, artists who are constantly feeding their fans are always giving them another reason to come back and explore their catalog.
What's something that you took from Live Life Fast going into the Big 3, going into Feed the Streets 3? Like what's something that you picked up along the way?
A lot of people would call it like a excuse or like, but my energy really wasn't in the right place on the last album. So I'm making music, maybe certain lines I'm saying is just like, it ain't flowing how Roddy usually flow. I probably don't want to sing as much because in regular life, I don't feel like I'm singing right now. I feel like I'm just, like that's how I feel.
Gotcha.
So it's going to reflect through the music, and I feel like fans don't think about it that deep, but it really be that deep. Like, you feel me? I can't make good music if I don't feel good.
Right.
Because you want me to make you feel good. High Fashion, you felt good. If I don't feel like that, then you're not going to like my music because it's going to reflect me not feeling like that. You feel me?
A second intangible is the differing lifestyle Roddy is living today compared to his come up from Feed the Streets 2, and Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. If you really listen to the subject matter of his music back then, it's all about hustling, his experience in the streets, and the hard work he was putting in to make it out of where he came from. You could tell in his voice and in his rhythm back then that he was very hungry for success to make it out. Fast forward to today, and Roddy has made it. He's definitely not living how he used to live. His life is good. His hard work is paid off. And what he's experiencing today is nowhere near what it was. The differing subject matter on Live Life Fast was that it was a lot about material things that most can't relate to. In his previous albums, he did always reference material things, but the difference was that he was tying it back to where he came from and his hustle to get to that point. The problem with Live Life Fast is that it was rarely tying things back to where he came from. In an interview with DJ Academics, soon after the drop of Live Life Fast, Roddy mentioned that COVID also really messed with his ability to experience new things, as restrictions were very harsh in LA where he's from. He said that he wasn't getting any new experiences to find different things to talk about. After a certain point, he actually moved to Miami so he could begin to experience new things again, which is where the record Moved to Miami with Lil Baby came from. Another thing to consider is what Roddy's motivation with music was to begin with. Some people like Drake, for example, just love music so much that if they don't create on a frequent basis, they feel that part of themselves is missing. Therefore, the main driving factor is not the business of music, but rather the love of creating, and the business acts as a side effect of the great content they're putting out, but doesn't change their mental motivation. It's possible that Roddy's main drive for creating music was a gateway to get out of the streets, and he just happened to be great at it. And when he got to a point where he had really made it financially, the driving factor to create wasn't as high as it once was. It's possible he'd rather focus on other business ventures than put all of his focus into the music. Earlier this week, I released a poll on my YouTube channel where I asked my subscribers to vote on what they thought about Roddy's latest EP. On the final part of the poll, I put the answer, "I didn't even know the project dropped." And out of nearly 900 votes, 58% of the people didn't know that Roddy had dropped anything. I definitely think this played a big role in the lack of excitement around Live Life Fast and the Big 3 EP. It seemed that no one was talking about it on both projects. This comes down to both Roddy learning how to create excitement around himself and new drops, and also his label Atlantic Records doing what they can to get more reach to let people know that the project is dropping. At the end of the day, Roddy Ricch is just 23 years old. He's nowhere near the end of his career. And while it does look like the music on the streaming side and the viewership side on YouTube isn't connecting as much as it once did, he has time to continue to experience life and come back bigger than ever. He inevitably will experience so many things within the next 7 to 10 years that could create a great story and bring back the connection among his fan base. Anyone who makes it to the heights that Roddy has will always get hate. That comes with reaching so many people. And unfortunately for rappers at the mainstream level, narrative plays such a large role in people's interpretations of public figures, which is why I wanted to create this video, to not give you my direct opinion, but rather present facts to be interpreted in the correct way to influence judgment. Numbers do not tell the full story. In today's day and age, we have access to so much data, it's easy to get lost in the mix. And while they can indicate trends, they do not explain everything. How do you all interpret this situation with Roddy Ricch? Did he fall off, or will he be just fine in the long term? Let's discuss in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.